Hello and welcome to Let's Talk with Parul. Today is a day when we're going to be talking about learning, about education. We know that within a week of the lockdown, in a matter of days, the coronavirus pandemic changed how students are educated around the world. Camera on, mic on have become the big buzzwords. From demanding silence in the class, then teachers are pleading with students to please stop. The anecdotes are many. But with more than half the academic year spent online, we thought maybe it's time to take stock and to understand how effective online learning has really been. What is the future? What do we look forward to once we go ahead? Will it be a combination of traditional learning and online learning? There are many questions. A lot of you have already sent them to us on Let's Talk with Parul on the group as well as on messages. And we will be asking our extremely accomplished panel of educators to tell us about their experiences so far with online schooling. And we'll also go over what they think the future holds. This is a discussion that involves all of us, and always we invite you to be an active participant. So please post your questions in the comment section below. Invite your friends, families to also join this conversation. It's really something which is relevant to everybody. But for now, let me introduce my guests for today. Please welcome Manika Sharma, Director of the Shri Schools. Under her leadership and tenure of over 2 decades, Shri School has been the #1 school in the country and boasts of great academic and extracurricular results. She's a dedicated educator with an unwavering belief in meaningful education as lifelong learners. And that is definitely something we're going to be discussing today. We also have with us Shashank Vira. Shashank is the founding partner, Hearth Advisors. He's an entrepreneur, educator, a social infrastructure financer with 3 decades of experience. But among all his accomplishments and positions held, I want to particularly highlight his work with curriculum reform and pedagogical, I hope I've got that right, innovations at the high school and undergraduate university levels in India and UK. And we also have with us Ankita Anand. Ankita is the director of Anand Preschool, Gurgaon. She has over 15 years of experience in early childhood care and education, specializing in the playway method, and her passion is reflected in the fact that Anand Preschool consistently ranks among the top 5 preschools in the region. Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. And we're looking forward to an extremely interesting and a very meaningful conversation today. So my first question, Manika ma'am, let's start with you.
Sure.
I would basically, we were talking about how easy it has been, or rather because you already had a digital footprint in the school, it was possible for you to switch over to the digital format. Delhi NCR students have been used to these temporary online classes thanks to unforeseen closures due to, pollution and extreme weather. And I mean, there have been so many other things that keep happening. There have been political disturbances, but that was always a temporary measure. That was a week, maximum 2 weeks. But this has been almost an entire academic year. So what I'd like to know from you is that, basically, how do you feel online learning has gone on during this time? And what have your experiences been as from the educator's point of view? We do hear a lot from the parents' point of view, of course.
Thanks so much, Parul. Thanks for having me here. Well, an interesting question, because now I think this is the 7th or the 8th month that we've been into this space. And honestly, like you said, starting March, I think it was the 12th of March, and when suddenly it was shut us down, and by the 23rd of March, it was locked down in Delhi NCR, if I remember the date right. It was a Sunday, I remember. But for us at the Shri School, we were always ready. It doesn't just happen by snap of a finger. I think the readiness came from investment in teacher training over the years. Like we spoke about digital footprint, investment came from every teacher actually possessing a laptop that they carried to school. So ICT enabled education was the hallmark already for us. So for us, it was just a couple of meetings over 3-4 days, and we got it rolling. I think to answer your question about how it's been, I think it's been a very exciting journey. I think there's a lot of learning. People talk of the negatives. I'd like to talk of the positives of, COVID has happened. So there's nothing that we can do. It's a pandemic worldwide. So why just keep talking of the negatives? So as far as the positives go, I think For the teachers, it was such a huge, steep learning curve for them. They felt enabled, they felt stronger, they felt they could do that, and they could construct their lessons such that learning continued to happen. So both for the teacher and the taught, it was learning both ways. The teachers were learning from their students and the students were learning from their teachers. It wasn't content driven anymore, but it was more about building that relationship. I mean, can you imagine a school where the children have moved to a class, they have graduated to the next class,
Right.
they haven't ever met the teacher. It's been 8 months. They haven't entered that building. We've had so many new children who haven't seen what the school looks like. So I think credit to the entire Shri teacher community and to all the heads and the senior management team who rose to that occasion very beautifully, and they knew that they just had to crack it for the good of the larger community. And if you ask the children, they have loved it. This is digital detox is something I used to talk about all the time.
Yes.
But when the pandemic hit us, I had to eat humble pie there because it wasn't about digital detox anymore for any of us.
Right. No, which is why I started with saying that, it's such a different world. I was asking my daughters, what are the differences, then and now? And they said that time it was a bit of, okay, keep quiet now. And now it's like, please talk. Because I think all screen children do tend to not speak up so much. They have to be, I think encouraged to speak. So that was quite interesting to hear from them.
A very interesting thing is because the children are not in school and in their physical space and they can't meet their peers, their friends, I often tell the teachers, I said, just give them some sanctioned 10 minutes chat time. Disappear from the screen. They're sitting in their own homes with their parents. So just disappear for 10 minutes and say, this is your official, gossip time, chat time, get to know each other, because they haven't met each other. Classes have got shuffled and the children don't know each other well enough. So I think that's also important as a school to build those communities.
Right. So, Ma'am, that I'm going to, just basically ask you a little more on the same subject. So, we talked about, of course, that whole social interaction, that little bit of interpersonal interaction is required. It's very important. From the learning point of view, how effective has it been really? Because again, 6 months, a whole semester, a term gone, we're halfway through, we're a little more than halfway through. We've had online exams also. So you must have been able to gauge something, because I know, of course, those, you don't mark some exams, which especially exams which are done online, but I'm sure it must have been an opportunity to try and gauge as to how effective has it been really.
So honestly, I think the learning hasn't suffered. Okay, so they've been able to transact all the lessons, and because the teachers are even more engaged, they're spending many more hours, because it's about anytime, anywhere. They log on in the evening, they log on a Saturday, besides the regular classes. But if you were to, and assessments happened, and the reason why we actually told the children that we are not going to be marking these assessments was because we were doing it for the first time. You can't expect a child to have online assessments and then to be under the pressure of marks and awards. So as a school, it was a very conscious decision that we took, that come next year on our founders, we are not going to be awarding anyone for marks accrued over the online examinations and assessments. Having said that, it was a bit of a challenge. I think what the children have lost out on, not the learning, but the habit of writing.
Oh, yes, for sure.
Suddenly, they've lost out on the habit of writing 500-word essay or a 500-word answer, because suddenly everything was just so trigger happy.
You're typing everything.
You're typing everything, but finally they need to write. So I think that was a learning for us as educators. And then we quickly changed tracks and we said, okay, we need to, make sure that we give them enough time and practice to be able to go back to the habit of writing. So that was the downside, but no, learning did not suffer.
That's good to know. I'm sure that must be, in fact, I would like, Shashank, I would love for you also to weigh in on this. That is this a universal feel from your experience, your interaction with, schools and educators across? Do you also feel the same, that learning has happened and it's really the interpersonal skills, the interaction, the social aspect, which is missing at this point of time?
So the simple answer is yes, Parul. This is something that's we are seeing across the world and across India, but it differs. It differs a lot. So it differs if we are talking about schools like the Shri School and the Anand School, preschool, and others in metro cities. And you're talking about schools in small towns. I mean, we are talking about schools in Udaipur and Porbandar, and which are tribal schools and things where the environment is totally different. So, but if we stay to schools which are well resourced and where the parents are well resourced and there are facilities available, right? But there's a great difference between preschoolers and kids in regular, let's say, K-12 schools, right,
Okay.
on it. And certainly great difference between those who are above the age of 11, let's say, right? But preschoolers are facing things that are very, very different, right? I mean, preschoolers are, for an example, the change of class that took place, right, had a massive impact on preschoolers, which it didn't on kids older. They wanted the, let's say, Ankita ma'am. Where's Ankita ma'am gone? We don't want Manika ma'am. We've never seen Manika ma'am. Where is Ankita ma'am?
Right.
Etc. They wanted their teacher from the previous year, whereas the school has moved them up and gone into another class, and there's another teacher looking after them, but they don't know that teacher. Now, it's had an impact on all age groups, but it's had a disproportionate impact on preschoolers, right? And for preschoolers, having that familiar face was really, really, really important. And that's backed up with a lot of child psychology of how the brain develops at that age as well, and the imprinting that happens.
In fact, I'm sure you can share some of the findings from your in-depth research survey that you've done with
Oh, yeah.
preschool parents. So there are a lot of, I mean, we were discussing it that day, and I thought there was a lot which one doesn't really think about, which has come to the surface. So do share some of the key concerns that parents have had with respect to, their child's, well, again, like I said, performance, milestones, etc.
Yeah. It was really interesting. I mean, we did the survey. It's a nationwide survey. I don't know how many others have been done, but this was fairly large, right? And it was only with parents of preschoolers and parents of preschoolers, largely from schools like Manikas and Ankitas, reasonably well-resourced schools and things. So it was biased in that sense, but there was a particular reason for that as well. Um, the first thing that was perhaps it should have been taken for granted that all the parents thought that they were better teachers than their school's teachers, right? That they were absolutely convinced about their own ability to teach their kids, right? And there was absolutely no doubt in that fact, right? No, but what came through really, really strongly was this the fact that their kids are feeling a sense of isolation, right? They are missing the social interaction, and there was a lot of variation actually between the kids who were, let's say, below the age of 3 or 3.5, and the ones who are above the age of 3, 3.5. Right now, so let's call it the younger
The
preschoolers and
younger,
the
right?
older
Yeah.
preschoolers, right? And there's a big difference between those,
Yeah.
right? I mean, the older preschoolers, the parents were much more concerned about the fact they were deeply concerned about the fact that there will be a loss of learning, right? They were deeply concerned and worried about how things will pan out, right? Whereas with the younger preschoolers, there was a great sense of, oh my God, my baby is back with me, and what a wonderful time, right, on it. And that actually did come through, I mean, surprisingly across from city to city to city, right? The other thing was that they felt swamped by the extent of material that was available, right? Whether it came from their preschool or Mr. Google was responsible
Of course.
for the material, right? But
Always.
yeah, they were swamped by the amount of material that was
Yeah.
available, right? And there's no way of discriminating that material. So I could go on about the findings, but the
Right.
basic
Right.
findings were great deal of worry about what's going to happen, great deal of relief that they had their kids with them, belief that we're as good as any of the teachers, but the kids are missing their teachers. They're missing their uh, they're missing the environment away from them,
Yes.
right? But they are missing their teacher, the teacher who had them before the lockdown.
It's so difficult, especially for a preschooler, like you said. And Ankita, that's the cue to bring you in, because I'm sure you've had this question put to you so many times. And this was, in fact, one of the first questions that was posted on the promos that we set out. Ruchi wanted to know, are online classes necessary for preschoolers and pre-primary? Looking at screen for an hour is harmful for those little eyes. Well, I mean, there are different forms of the same question, and I'm sure you've answered that umpteen number of times, but would love to hear your perspectives on that.
Firstly, it was much more challenging for us to move from on campus to online because the first lot that comes to us has never been to school. And the second lot that goes to the next class is just about becoming independent and confident in developing language to go there. So both the age groups, lots of challenges. And the whole idea is to go into a place outside home, away from parents, where everything is suddenly shared from belonging to you. I completely understand that screen is not good for little children and things, but it was something that was uncalled for. The pandemic
Sure.
came. And because the first few years are essential for their brain development, it was studied that according to the WHO, 1 hour per day is the need for the hour.
Okay.
Now, how you divide that 1 hour can be rationed. So the way we panned it out was we said, because we need social emotional interaction, let 20 minutes be virtual and let an email go with videos and things to do for 2 days. So then, depending on the mother's work at home and work from home routine, she can ration how much time she wants to spend. So automatically, the question of the eye and the screen gets answered. And yet, you do the curriculum in a manner that it would have been done in school rather than having so much material and being all over the place with Google.
Right.
So there's
So
a lot on the topic, but in short,
yeah, no,
yeah.
no, I'm sure. I mean, especially like, and what Shashank mentioned, that, at the end of the day, the youngest ones want their ma'am, want that, the familiar, loving face that they've already gotten used to. So I'm sure, I understand what you say when you said that it was quite a challenge to move over from on campus to online.
Have to say one thing that the adults can be whatever, whether it's parents or teachers or us, but the children are like beyond resilient and flexible, and they amaze you. So, like what Manika ma'am just said about there should be time where they break and they can have chat or gossip time. In our case, what we do is if the class size is 20, we log on 3 times in smaller groups of 7, 6, 6
I see.
because we need to pull them out. So rather than that full 1 hour, you pull them out in smaller groups, and before you log on, your screen is shut. The teacher's
Yeah.
screen is shut, but you can hear, "Where's Parul? Where's Shashank? Where's Manika? Where's Ankita auntie?" So you can see that they might not speak so much when they come on screen, but they're completely aware of the social interaction that's happening at that time.
So, I mean, I'm just trying to paraphrase what you're saying, that it's not just a question of keep them busy for that 1 hour. I mean, in high school and, senior school, you don't have a choice. There is that pressure of board curriculum and, everything that has to be done in a certain structured way. But at a younger level, I'm talking about junior school also, Manika ma'am, perhaps you could weigh in. It's not just a matter of keep them busy for those 3 hours. There is a lot more
No.
thought put in, right?
Yeah. No, not at all. Not at all. So what Ankita spoke about smaller groups, that's exactly what we've done, because children from Anand or any other preschool, when they come to us, it dovetails very beautifully when they enter our Pravesh Vatika, or that's the first class that they enter. We've also carved out these little groups with the teachers, so that for the even one-on-one with parents is so important, for the parent to get to know the teacher. In fact, the whole approach has changed, Parul. Suddenly, so what we spoke about, three-way partnership with parents is actually today we can see it happen.
Right.
Because the parent is around with their child, is a part of the class many times, especially when they're all of 4 or 5 years old, is very much a part of the lesson of the class. So that three-way partnership today, I can see it in the real time in this online space. And having said so, I think a lot of innovation and creativity has come to the fore. So some of the things that the teachers could never do when they would come to school at 8 a.m. in the morning, now every storytelling is they dress up in the character in their own homes. They bring alive the storybook. I can't begin to tell you that, all the lovely things that are happening through junior school, where every character When they talk about states, they dress up so the teacher is playing a huge role there. And for the children, it's so much excitement to see their teacher or their ma'am or their sir in a completely new avatar. So it's a lot of fun, It's I think creativity is to another level now. And I suppose that's something that we all take great pride in about the way our educators are. But having said so, learning has changed, and this too shall pass. Take it like a gap year. And look at the kind of learning that's happened for everyone, from our bhaiyas to our drivers to everyone who's got a smartphone to our children who come from the economically weaker section. They've all got a gadget. The Parent-Teacher Association came together to give them a gadget. They all took home a laptop. All the learning is happening. So, look at the learning in this 1 year. And 3 years later, we would have forgotten, there was a COVID, but we are all back in the same space. But look at the learning for those kids. I mean, I marvel at our community. Over to you, Shashank.
Yeah, sorry. Parul, it was very interesting in the survey that parents were patting themselves on the back for all kinds of things. One, of course, that they're better teachers than the teachers themselves. But they also,
love that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It is great. And talking to some of the parents was fantastic what they came up with. But taking their answers with a pinch of salt, this is preschool parents, right? Okay, and they're spending at an average 3 hours a day themselves on their
parents
kids learning. The parents, not the kids.
Yes.
Right? This is the parents on their kids learning, right? On it. So there's a lot of prep going on from the side of the parents, right? And one of the bits of feedback that they had was that their preschool was not connecting with them as parents well enough. They were connecting with the kids, right? Yeah, and the one bit of angst they had was that they were doing this 3 hours of prep and whatever else they were doing for their kids' learning, right? And the preschool was doing what it was doing. And the connect between what the preschool was doing and what the parents were doing was missing because the preschool was not engaging well enough with the parents, right, on it. Yeah. Now, this particularly, and when we probed this in some depth, they also looked at things which have to be done physically, things like hand-eye coordination, things like, various kinds of motor skill development. Now, these are all things that it's difficult for the teacher can actually prompt the kids to do things, but that very important feedback loop to the teacher is missing, right? That feedback loop only happens with somebody present in the room as with the child, right, on it. And therefore stuff like that, right? So when we probe deeper, they actually looked at some of those developmental milestones and said, we're really concerned because the kids are slipping on some of those, right? And we'd love to be involved, and we just albeit they're saying that they're better teachers, they obviously are not better curriculum developers, because they said we'd love a great deal of help in that. So the stuff that's going well is the stuff that can be talked about or prompted to do and mimicked, which is what the online platform is good for, right, on it. And that stuff is going well, right? And teachers have risen to the challenge and it's going well. The stuff that doesn't lend itself to facing a screen and doing things and mimicking and copying, right, on it, is the stuff that needs a little bit of support.
And which has to be done by the parents then. I mean,
and they're putting in those 3 hours. So they're putting in the time. They need guidance.
Yes, Ankita, you had a point on that.
So I am completely aware of this part of it. So on the virtual, you can do the social, emotional, and the language. So for this is when we drafted those emails, which had demo videos of exactly how to do that Montessori activity, or how to show how the artwork should be done, and then just give it and let it happen, because we are aware how much effort the parent is putting, but the parent is not a teacher. So their standards will vary as to what they expect from their child. And therefore, when it came to assessment also, we said we're not going to do an assessment this time, we're going to call it observation. Because assessment suddenly becomes extremely harsh, because we're not seeing it, we're seeing the final work, we're not seeing it in process. So we don't know how much the parent is saying, aise karo, aise karo, aise karo. So when you change it around like that, and I do know about this communication part also, but the fact is everybody needs to be safe in order to keep rolling out the program. So the thing that could happen easily which parents love, preschool parents love, gate pe baat ho gayi, phone pe baat ho gayi. That cannot happen. And the staff that's coming to school also is coming on a roster system. So you can't say, I'll call you tomorrow, because her turn must be coming after 3 days, and that topic needs to be dealt with then. So the way to go about that is to reach out, even for the smallest thing, like you would do when they were in a regular preschool, because our numbers are way smaller than in a formal school, is via email. And within that day, you will get a response on how to do that little thing.
No, thanks for sharing that, Ankita, because I think these are some important best practices which will come in handy for parents as well as teachers who are struggling with the same situation. I'm sure everybody has the same worries, and especially about this whole FOMO. And Manika ma'am, I'd like to ask you about that. That
Yes.
FOMO at the very young level, as Shashank and Ankita just talked about, developmental milestones, gross and motor, fine motor skills, etc. That is one thing. And then for senior school students, I would say high school students, 9th to 12th, the FOMO takes on a totally different dimension. Are we missing out milestones? Will our marks be good enough? I think parents at this stage would love some reassurance that this year is not going to be like, it's not going to be a dud year. Whatever it is, we're still coming out with something and our kids haven't lost out. I think that is what parents really want to hear.
Okay. So, learning is ongoing. It doesn't stop when you enter class 9. It doesn't stop when you enter class 10, right? It's a continuous process. We all know that. Parents of those children who are graduating out of school in next year have a reason to worry, okay? But our complete focus is on those children, because we are also aware that we have a responsibility to ensure that whatever they need to study, their syllabus, everything is up to speed, and they are ready to take on those board exams. We don't know how it's going to pan out the next 4 months, how they're going to pan out. We don't know if exams will take place or not. Like you saw, even in the month of June and July, there was absolute mayhem there. We don't know. We don't know what's the future, but all we know and we promise is that for those children, for them, it's a make or break year when they're leaving the portals of the school and ready to enter college. For that batch, it is our responsibility to ensure that there's complete focus, and we keep them very well prepared, when it comes to all subjects and all the assessments and everything else. For the others, I would like to tell the parents that you do not need to worry so much. Focus on their well-being, their emotional health, their mental health. We have no idea what the children are going through. Children are not used to being cocooned in their homes with adults. Because you spoke of high school students,
Yes.
I can imagine their freedom so curtailed, because already we have families working out of home. Every room there is a laptop, and a parent is engaged with his or her work. And for the child, he or she doesn't know where to go. Students talk to us. So I think we all need to, use this time to bond, to understand that, okay, this too shall pass. And, that kind of assurance can only come from the parents or the siblings. The teachers are there. The teachers are fully supportive for every child. I'm not just talking of Shri Ram teachers. I know teachers across the globe, they're very concerned, because this is such a beautiful, pious profession. We have a job to do. And we cannot absolve ourselves of any kind of responsibility. So we are there for our children. And again, for the high school children, what do they like? I keep talking to the present student council and saying, my heart bleeds for you, because you haven't won that badge to school. You haven't walked on that field on sports day. You haven't held the flag if you've been a house captain.
Absolutely.
But
it's heartbreaking to think of all that, but that's the way things are.
So when I was talking to them just last week, and I said, just don't worry, there are better things waiting for you in college, and this too shall pass. Look at the number of people dying. Look at the number of people losing their loved ones. So let's look at, you're still
privileges
better
that
off.
we have.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's hard, but we all need to hold our children, and we have to build, like Ankita also said, build resilience, patience, oodles of patience by the adults in the house, because the children are confined and cocooned. And we need, and we can't, I know everyone's losing their patience, but this is not the time to lose your patience.
Absolutely. As a mother of 2 teenagers, I'm right there. Shashank, my next question to you is really about innovation. And we know that, when there are major disruptions, those do tend to trigger rapid innovation. And we've already seen how COVID has been a catalyst for so many different innovative solutions in a relatively very short period of time. What kind of innovations do you hope will emerge from this situation and will go on into the future in, our mainstream systems?
Well, actually, there are lots of innovations that are happening. I mean, this has been a beautiful time. The chaos has been actually quite beautiful from the innovation perspective. And Manika, you'll remember what must be 30 years ago, read Once Upon a Story and stuff like that, read where we were trying, trying to do some innovative stuff. That's a long time ago. That's kind of stuff is happening now. What I mean is that worldwide, not just in India, there was this great fear of putting assessment in the hands of the teachers. Right? Because there was this fear that you wouldn't be able to moderate across schools and students, and every school would give very high marks to their own kids, right, on it. This last year, there has been a forced requirement for teacher-assessed grades internationally to be the university entrance grades, right, on it.
Yes.
And that's kind of been a little bit of a removing that piece of wood that lets the stream flow, right? And there is a major change happening worldwide, right, about recognizing that teacher-assessed grades have value, right? Now, this is a tremendous change. I think you can't underestimate the extent to which this is going to have an impact on schooling, right? This is going to have a major impact on schooling because this itself leads to innovation. Because the greatest fear of innovation at the high school level is that you innovate, but then you have your standardized exams at the end of the day, right? And how do you balance your school-based innovation with the requirements of a board exam, right, on it? Now, once you have teacher-based assessment becoming more important, right, the balance shifts, right? And this is something that's happened, and I'm seeing the signs of it from curriculum system to curriculum system where they are actually coming in, and this is extremely, extremely powerful. The other innovation that is happening is that teachers are having to rethink methodology, right? And they've been forced to rethink methodology. See, I mean, I've been a teacher as well. You end up becoming stuck in a rut. You've done it so many times. You can go and blindfolded into a class and actually teach that because you've taught that lesson before. It happens to all of us, right, on it. This year, again, the chaos has actually forced everyone into adopting a new methodology because it's an unknown out there, right? And also you don't know how long. You don't know that, okay, fine, I need to go online for 2 months or 1 month. I mean, initially it was, right, let's get to the summer. By the summer will defeat the coronavirus and we are done, etc. That didn't happen, right? We are now into, coming into the Shera soon, right? And so therefore teachers have had to innovate because they've been forced into a situation and they've risen to the occasion, right? So the kinds of innovations that are coming are, I would say, at 3 levels. At one level, it's coming in terms of how the exam boards are looking at assessment, right? That's one level at which innovation is happening, right? The second level at which innovation is happening is that teachers are looking at methodology differently. And the third level at which innovation is happening, and I can't again overemphasize this, is in content, right? I've been shouting from the rooftops, again, Manika would know, for years to at least reduce the content by at least 30 to 40%, because a lot of it is rubbish, unneeded stuff. Right?
that has happened this year.
It has happened this year, and people are now wondering, see, well, look at the statements we're making. Now, supposing a kid in grade 11 or grade 12 has 40% less content for the board exam, right?
Yeah.
That 40% therefore doesn't get taught. So what are we telling that kid? You don't need this 40%, or you're going out in life 40% short of the content you need, right? Okay. And so we have to be very careful, because what we're ending up is that we don't actually need this content, and that realization is fantastic.
Yeah, it's more about skills, acquire the skills that you would need tomorrow. Yeah.
So in fact, ma'am, if we can just elaborate on that, we talk about ultimately for children, to make them future ready, you need to teach them adaptability. You need to teach them, how important it is to learn how to learn on an ongoing basis, be ongoing learners, as you yourself have said so many times. But what do you think will come out of this? Is there a combination of online traditional learning that can actually support children learning life skills rather than just curriculum-based skills?
I think so. I think we've struck a very good balance. And for the future, I think there are, like Shashank said, the kind of innovations that we are going to see coming through. For example, we have societies in school for senior students, and the students would have to stay back, say, on a Thursday, right all the way till 5:30, 6 in the evening to partake in those societies, which could be music or economics or robotics or whatever. Suddenly there's a realization that no, they don't have to stay back anymore. Look at the distance between Delhi and Gurugram, and so many of our children come from Delhi, that they can actually go home, rest for an hour, have their lunch at home, and then log on and they can have the same experience, So we are actually looking at ways, for the children with special needs or different abilities, this has been a fantastic way of teaching and learning.
Absolutely.
Because the parent who we always craved for us to be in school, so that engage with the teacher, so that to understand what the child needs, sit with the teacher and understand. Now suddenly in this online space, we find again that the learning curve is really steep for the child, because the child who comes with different abilities has the parent he loves and trusts by his or her side, and they have the teacher on the screen, and the strategies are being shared, and there you are, bingo. The child wants more and more. So now my teachers have promised the children that we'll even see you on a Saturday morning for 45 minutes and we will do this exercise. So, post-COVID, whatever the new normal is going to be, one thing is for sure, that I think the best practices are going to emerge, and we're going to have some think tanks around this about what is it that we can do in school and what is it that we can do post school hours, so that we can just enhance this whole, this learning space for us. I think a lot of good,
It's a lot to look forward to.
lot to look forward to. वो जो मक्खन निकलेगा ना, वो बहुत rich होगा. I don't know what that word is, where you
after the manthan.
after the manthan, जो मक्खन होगा after the COVID, that is going to be the best and the creamiest.
I would like to add, actually, the learning has been very steep even in the preschool age group, because suddenly it's one kid to a teacher and a parent.
Right.
The two people both doing, and the same thing, the strategy is coming from us. And even the child, because say you're doing green color, if they see something green, they're just getting up, running and coming and bringing it. It's not even scheduled for a day. It's just happening so spontaneously. So the thinking ability is growing even faster than one would think it would. Just to give like a little example.
No, that's fabulous. And Ankita, in fact, like with all of your education, your experience in early child education, and especially with, in terms of development and everything, I'd like to ask you the next question, which is about this push that is happening recently and more lately about, if you don't do coding by the time you're 6, you're missing out on something. You're, on the one hand, you're talking about a steep learning curve, sitting at home and, doing simple things like a quick code of color and the object sitting in my room. On the other hand, we're being bombarded by aggressive advertising messages about, for example, coding. I'm sure there are many others, but since this is so in your face, it's top of mind right now. What would you have to say to parents about that? I mean, can they chill? Will their child be future ready if they do not do coding by the time they are, 6 years old?
See, as parents and as educators, our duty is always to expose children to various things, whether it be music or sports or say coding, which seems to be the thing for today. But the fact is, our other duty is to enable children to make choices and decisions on their own. Whether it's at a preschool level that I want to wear a pink kurta or I want to wear a yellow kurta, or it's at age 6 that I want to play golf and not coding, or it's at 15 that I want to do arts and not science. It's the same thing. So if the same ideology moves and you remember these duties, then you continue to expose. Today there's coding, so expose, but don't make it your own rat race or your own winning. That's not the point.
No, I like the way you put that. Don't make it your own rat race, because a lot of it comes from parents, unfortunately. We are all tuned that way, that, you want the best for your child and you're just scared you're going to be missing out on something. So you tend to go.
Better than what you got. So it's also a
Yes.
natural tendency of a parent.
Right.
None of us went to any preschool or school like the ones that we're talking about. But that's the
Absolutely.
evolution. Yeah.
Absolutely. Shashank, just extending on to the same conversation, there is this whole parallel industry, the educational support industry,
Oh,
whether
yeah.
it's tutors online, whether it is enrichment classes and everything. They're having a field day, right? At
Yep.
present.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
when you're sitting at home, you are the customer is suddenly the parent being bombarded by all of this, and you're being bombarded by suppliers for whom, I mean, the more units that are actually out there, that's very often the only metric. And it's very difficult to actually distinguish between what's good and what's not good, because a lot of the material that is out there is for a world that transitioned early 2020 and it's gone, right, on it. And a lot of the material is for a world that no longer exists, right? Because the world actually has changed. I would agree entirely with what Ankita said. The world has changed. And, I mean, none of us can crystal ball gaze and see what a 5-year-old today will face in the world of work when he or she is 25, 20 years from now. We have no idea, right? You look back 20 years ago and the world was a very different place. So how can we tell what the world is going to be like 20 years from now when this 5-year-old is out in the world of work? But what we can prepare them for is for a world of change, right? And how to deal, what are the skills you need to deal with the world around you? Now, the materials that are there are dealing with a world of last year, right? Not of this year, right?
Right.
So what you need to do, I mean, here I'm talking more to parents who are being bombarded by this entire set of things. One is, um, don't be fearful, right? I mean, one of the insights we have as an organization is that parents come to education from a sense of guilt that they're not doing the best by their kids, right, on it. And so they're always doing more and more and more because you got this little bit of a sense of guilt that, oh my God, maybe I should do this a little bit more to be good for my kid, or what will my kid lose out, right? First thing is, don't come from that sense of guilt. Use your good judgment as you would in every other thing. I mean, if you are going to take that one extra piece of chocolate away from your kid because it's one too many, right? Then certainly one more learning resource for your child can easily be taken away. So don't just feel that bombarding with one more thing to do is necessarily a good thing, right? So get away from the guilt. And how do you actually judge whether resource is good or not, right? You see, you have to look at what's going to be the outcome of that resource. Now, you talk about coding, right, on it. And if you got, whether it's a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old, right, on it, um, try and figure out, and I'm just talking about coding, right, here. Um, Firstly, whether that activity itself, the way it is done by whichever provider is coming to you, makes sense or not, right? So are you, coding is about creativity. I'm on the board of the largest charity in the world which deals with coding, right? And I'm on the board of that, and so I know a little bit about this. A lot of the commercial providers, right, are asking you to repeat code that somebody else has written. That doesn't teach you a thing, right? It just teaches you how to repeat code that somebody else has written. It doesn't teach you coding, right? Now, we took the example of coding, but the same applies to any other resource that is there, right? You have to, as a parent, critically examine the resource and see that just because a resource says that it is asking you to code, is it actually teaching you to code, or is it asking you to memorize and repeat code, right? Similarly, whether it is any other resource, if it's a CBSE class 10 resource, whether it is a science at home resource, whether it is a reading literature and making sense of that resource, or whether it is a new environmental studies curriculum. I think a little bit is discrimination. Do the same kind of discrimination you would do if you went to buy a new television set, or you went to buy a new mobile phone, or you went to buy something. I mean, you do a lot of research for that, right? You
Right.
don't just go and buy whichever television set is nearest to the door in the store, right, on it. And so do the same due diligence with resources for your kids.
That's
And
a great message.
less is more.
Less is more. Yes. Definitely. I think, if you, like you said, that, you're evaluating so many parameters when you're buying large goods, and this is education, this is learning, this is your child. So probably the very first thing is, do I need it? What are the benefits that my child is going to get, and not be driven by fear and guilt. I think that's primary. That's something we all need to learn. I'm just, before we wrap up, I'm just going to go over all the awesome comments that we've been getting, a lot of engagement. And Niru Nagpal mentions that we are blessed to be in possession of all the required resources, which are still luxuries for the underprivileged. For sure, that is something that has created a bit of a gap as far as education is concerned. But like Manika ma'am said, that school communities have also come together and I've seen a lot of other NGOs also coming together to put together electronic gadgets for children who don't have access to them. So please do look out for those organizations in your city. There are bound to be some, otherwise maybe start the initiative yourself, because we all have spare gadgets and there are so many children who need them. So let's just connect the two. Thanks for bringing that up, Niru. Shimona has a message for you, Shashank. And we have Sana, who says that with kids, parents are also learning something new every day, which is absolutely true. Purvi says, kudos to children and teachers alike to rise to the occasion, which is absolutely, I agree with her completely. We've seen it from both ends. Children have been resilient, like Ankita said, and the teachers have responded absolutely fabulously. Niru also mentions that it's a good idea when you're observing and not assessing. Sana talks about assurance, and of course, coding. We can all relate to the whole aspect of coding. So I think that is very universal as well. Any closing words just before we wrap up? Manika ma'am, message to parents, message to students.
I think I'll say message for the families that just stay happy. Let's build resilience around us. If COVID is contagious, happiness is even more contagious. So let's just do it for the mental health of all, not just our children, but for everyone's mental health. And stay blessed. And all the very best. And thank you so much, Parul, for having me.
Thanks, Manika ma'am. Ankita, anything that you'd like to say?
I would just like to say that be easy on yourself, be easy on your babies. Don't really hurry, and then there'll be no worry.
Oh, that's nicely done. I see who that message is tailored for. Shashank, closing words from you.
Yeah, I just say to parents, respect and trust the teachers of your kids, right? They're professionals, right? Whatever situation and whenever the kids go back to school, they're going to be there for you, right, on it. And the pieces are going to get picked up not by you. You're picking up the pieces now as parents, but your learning of your kids will be picked up by the teachers, right? Just respect them and trust them, because when all is said and done and we are back in school, it's those teachers who are going to have to pick up the pieces and make sense of all the gaps and fill in all the gaps, and all the rough edges have to be smoothened, and they're going to have to do it, right? So support them now, because a few months from now, they're going to be in the front line of dealing with your kids.
That's very well put, Shashank. Honestly, the reason why, one of the reasons why this discussion has happened is because we hear a lot from the parents. This is a parents forum. This is a content platform for moms. And of course, there's a lot of angst expressed about, schooling and the way it has been impacted by the current pandemic, etc. But we very rarely see it from the educator's perspective. And I'm so glad that we did that today. We managed to get a lot of insights from all of you, which we miss as parents. And thank you so much for that. Thank you. This has been an absolutely fabulous discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching.